is remarkable, and he's going to show you this for himself. Thank you.
Hello everybody. Hello. Great to be here. And thank you, Mark. Right. Forgive me, I'm a little bit nervous. Arthurian myth drew my interest as a youth. Curiously, both English and Welsh boys at school literally fought over the possession of Arthur as their national hero. English boys would assert, Arthur's the King of England, Mallory so-so. And Welsh boys simply shook their head in dismay. And I recall the retort, how can an English king fight the Saxons? And this was for me the first clear example of a discordance or a dissonance in the collective story of our history. Many years later, in my 30s, I read Robert Graves' The White Goddess, and this threw light on the subject of the Druids, showing a knowledgeable and gifted profession of people who drew students and teachers to Britain from across the continent, as I might add, as did Greece did at the other end of the continent. And again, I sensed a dissonance in the view held that the Druids were intellectually gifted, but didn't commit anything to writing, apparently, although being skilled in languages. They didn't apparently record anything in Cymraeg, or whatever language it was that preceded it in Britain. And we are told that we have evidence of Latin, Roman, British inscribed stones, generally in the Dark Age period, viewed as poorly spelt and grammatically weak Latin. And that Welsh texts in themselves are said to appear later, sometime in the 8th or 9th century. And again, all of it's decidedly odd. But all that was in the kind of background and floating. It's something that I didn't really consider or engage myself in with until much later. And it wasn't until my 50s that I went out looking for histories of Britain, and the histories of Wales in particular, to see what was said. And I was looking for Arthur, or for the British Trojan Foundation story, while also informing myself of Wales's history beside its big and powerful neighbour. Yet wherever I cast my net, both Brutus and Arthur seemed to be inadmissible as history and only allowed as legendary mythic status. And it wasn't until about 2013 that I bumped into Adrian Gilbert's book, The Holy Kingdom, that made me aware of the work of Wilson and Blackett. And their books gave me sight of our history, and it gave me a story. And their Colburn translations and readings of the inscribed stones in Welsh kicked down the door onto accessible new information. Also, their discovery that ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs could be read using Welsh simply amazed me. And it could be said that seeing Cleopatra's cartouche unpack a distinct new message changed the direction of my life. I must add here, it seems appropriate to acknowledge what a debt of gratitude that we owe to the astonishing work of the late Alan Wilson. Joining the BHS group was a natural step. Finding myself drawn into a community of others, delving mindfully into all manner of things historical, was inspiring. And it was a wonder to witness the energy and the passion of Ross on the group page and especially on his live show, keeping all the plates spinning with a stupendous sense of fun and purpose. And to witness the collective engagement and camaraderie across the group too. It felt very much like the next best thing to coming home. I began posting my first translations to the group, hieroglyphs first, then the few of the inscribed British stones. Roman coins followed, using Welsh. It didn't seem like long before Ross was interestedly utilising some of these pieces on the Sunday broadcast for discussion. And afterwards, occasionally interviewing me and my son Adam to discuss latest research. Always focused, always fun, and it's a great sadness personally, as I'm sure we all feel, that we lost Ross. And in our case, just as we felt we were beginning to know each other better. And I hope that the spirit of Ross is looking down on us all today and enjoying these proceedings. And it is an honour to be here and to celebrate his work. Earlier this year, I remember discussing with Paul Challoner a particular breakthrough that I'd made when working on the Dubris stone in Cornwall, from which I discovered that in addition to the regular line, there's a reverse line too that could be used to generate words, from which we can build up a narrative. Testing this out on some British Cymric royal names, for example, I found appropriate narratives being released. And that it also did fit with history. On a more mundane level, I asked myself the question, would the system work when looking at place names too? And so I trialled about 20 names, and this too seemed to work consistently. So today I'll hope to show you an example of 3 place names. So I'll hope to get through this quickly so that we can make it in the time that I have. 2 of the names are listed online as Latin and one as Anglo-Saxon, although arguably they're Brythonic or Cymraeg. The names are Dubris, or Dover, Clum, or Gluster, and finally TNESS. We've got a jam here. Yeah, I've got a jam. Okay, thank you. Thanks for that. Anybody that knows me knows I'm a technophobe. Just to illustrate Dover, obviously, here's a map of Britain, which is cited as being what Britain was in 410, Roman Britain. Obviously, we can see happily Dover's there. So essentially, we easily, quickly find a Roman Britain view of the world very quickly online. So we have Brutus. I think a picture seems to have gone missing there. Dubris, the name itself may derive from a Latin source. It's given as such. It's also given as a British name. So there's some confusion there. Although it's listed, when you look for Roman towns, it's listed as a Latin name. At the base of it is not Latin, it's British. Over here is a word list. That's a page which is I use to generate the words that I need to create the narrative, and they're based on the word choice or the letter choice from the name itself. So to start with Dubris, we have its Latin name meaning waters. Similarly, in the Welsh, it's the same thing. So we have, with Dubris, we have two groups. We have a regular line and we have a reverse line. So what I tend to do is I break the word into its groupings, and from the pairings then generate words. So any word literally beginning with a DU or a BR or an IS is used to generate the words. In the case of DU, it could be DW, it could be DY, depending on alternatives that we get from YOLO. It could appear in the second, third, or the fourth syllable of a letter, or even at the end. So at the end, you have that little rule to create the words from. So there's nothing other than to get the dictionaries out and to see what you can find. Similarly, we can work a reverse line, which is literally, as you can see, the word order has just changed there to become SIRBUD. And in the same manner, you use that to generate words. Once you have that, you look at those words to see what you can find in terms of generating a line. And that literally is just picking a word out from one column, moving to this next column, looking into the third column. And once you look at it, you can see lines suggest themselves. And it's just a question of finding those and then just looking at them and seeing what can be built. So I will just push on to the translation in English. So we have Dubris as the name, and we can follow on then, literally, into the reverse line that follows, shore in presence and height. And then we pass on to the regular line which follows, water, white-topped, that is on the surface. Follow through to the reverse line, firm, the governor, a lord, order to issue a seal. Likewise, again, we follow through to the reverse and regular line, and we pick up a shore in presence, behold here, two shores, federative, humility. And continuing, to assure commonality, slight typo there, unto them, to bear or to carry, to issue, to underscore, a journey, the value of a thing unto them. Two parties, purpose fair, what is produced, to purchase fully, honour agreeable, to record, to underscore, to certify a wish unto them. So I think what we have there in an uncanny way is a description of the function of the port itself, in the sense of customs excise and transactions of money and business across the continent and into Britain. And this seems to be contained within the name. I'll pass on to the second name now. This is Gleham or Gluster. And likewise, we have Gluster placed here to the head of the seven. We're given, again, a Roman context all the time. This is an image that you can find again online very quickly, and we see the construction of, pardon me, let me get into that. You have the construction of the town, the proximity to the river, and I do believe in excavation work for Gluster that they have found warehouses and storage to accommodate business that would have run on the river. Looking at Gleham, this is the mainstream view, i.e. established about AD 48 as a Roman fort in Roman Britain. The legion's based here, probably Legio 20, around AD 66, and then Legio 2, ready for the invasion of Wales between 66 and 74 AD, and designated as a colony by Emperor Nerva in AD 94. We get a different view in a sense. We get a counter view with Geoffrey of Monmouth, and this is just a statement that I just pulled down online. in the sense of recognizing Avaragus as a contemporary of Emperor Claudius, that is charged with rebuilding the cities. He is feared, becomes feared, and halts his tribute to Rome, for which Claudius sends Vespasian to Britain with an army to collect the unpaid tribute. And that was a battle between them, which ended in a stalemate. And it took the intervention of his wife, who was apparently the daughter of Claudius, Jennifer, to mediate the peace. Now, in a sense, that's the story that we get from Geoffrey of Monmouth, and that you can find that obviously in his history. But the general view is, as is put there, that it's highly romanticised and historically untrustworthy, and that Avaragus is seen as an entirely legendary figure. So if we have a look at Glebum, similarly again, there we have the word. I've broken it down into its component groupings for the positive, for the regular and for the reverse line, from which the list of words are drawn out, which are pulled from the dictionaries that I've cited in here. So the three of the older dictionaries. I also use Latin dictionaries too. So to start with Glebum, there is a Proto-Celtic term, gleon, meaning bright place, but gleo also means courageous, and I think we need to remember that, because I think that does link in with Avaragus being courageous. There is a sense in which we might pull in a meaning from Latin too. There's a sense that it could mean having been cultivated, which also might fit in with the sense of it's a place which is sponsored by Rome. When we press on from Glebum, and then we go into the reverse and then onto the regular line, and we keep that pattern. But what we have is, after Glebum, we have to make greater, after, which may be the marriage. After a seaport, so it was obviously created and expanded to make that connection for trade. To expand, theirs, that might mean the Roman input. Behold here, to build a stone wall, which may be the fort wall, spreading burthen, and a bank by a waterside fleet, behold here. Passing on again into the next reverse and regular lines, to remove or carry household goods, goodly gleaming, to go ashore, desire, behold here, and continuing, a measure. Look, burthened, to spread together of gold, behold. Behold here. And this may be an allusion to the tribute. And we continue. A lord, lo, a fox. The backbone will, behold here. And I think we might have an allusion to Avaragus' refusal here. To hide, at length decline. Courage, hardy, behold here. A lord. A prodigal man, malicious. Here we might see Vespasian sent from Rome. Under obstruction, stiff, behold here. Swift, to behold. Vespasian did come at speed. Some anger to purge quickly, behold here. And we continue, a lord now to slacken, a half retreat. And this is the standoff that we saw earlier, mentioned by Geoffrey. That a half retreat theirs, so it looks like it was the Romans who stood back. Behold here, delicate, beautiful, a she-fox, and this may well be Genesis' arbitration. Fair, nimble, behold here. Civility, to behold, shining resolution, to proceed. Behold here, loving, goodly, that closes the clasp. So, again, inside of the name, we seem to have a strong sense of a narrative which is supporting Geoffrey's stated history for the city. So it's contained within the name. I'll press on to the third. Oh, just one more thing. Avaragus is seen as legendary, but as we can see by that translation there. His presence is very much sensed. And we do have a poem by Juvenal which does mention him in passing as a real person. So, in one sense he's real, and in another sense he's mythologized. So we just need to clarify the picture. Finally, looking at TNESS. So this is famous for the place where Brutus landed. And its place is somewhere at the mouth of the Dart in this sort of area. So we have that location. It's not specifically a Roman history, but it is a British one. I certainly heard about the Brutus stone at school. People told me that there was a stone that was located on the pavement of the 51 4th Street in Dubris. It's still there. There's the sign. There's a picture of Brutus, and I'll return to that at the end of the presentation. So if we fall to the mainstream view, we have a sense that TNESS was first recorded in AD 979 and comes from the Old English personal name Tota and Ness or headland. So in this sense we understand that this is an English word and it refers to a point of land running into the sea, and it's an obsolete term. So if we have that as a word which didn't come into existence until it was coined by the Saxons, for it to be used by Geoffrey in the 12th century as the location obviously would send the alarm bells ringing. Well, Geoffrey can't use that, the name hadn't been invented yet. But what we do have from Geoffrey is, in his Historia Regum Britanniae, is a basic sense of the story of where Brutus landed. This is a quote from Wiki, so it's still calling him the mythical founder when it's talking about Geoffrey's view of him. It's said that there's local legend which states that Brutus first stepped from his ship, and as he did so, he supposedly declaimed, "Here I stand, and here I rest, and this town shall be called TNESS." My new friend Big. I've just opened up my copy of the history and just made a list of clear signals that Geoffrey Monmouth had put down, and certainly he cites that Britain was called Albion when Brutus arrived and was uninhabited except for a few giants. Those giants are becoming more and more interesting to me. And that the country was most attractive, and it was a delightful situation with its various regions and its forests and its rivers and its fish. And that Brutus went on, or his party went on, to explore the various regions and drove the giants into caves. With the approval of their leader, Brutus, the land was divided among themselves, and Brutus called the island Britain after his own name, and then the language which had been called Trojan or Cryptic Greek was called British. And with Carinius kills the last giant, called Magog in Cornwall, and that once Brutus had divided up his kingdom, he decided to build his capital, called Troinoma, later corrupted to Trinovantum, or basically where London is. So we have a clear sense of the history given by Geoffrey. If we look at TNESS now, there's the letter sheet, or the word sheet again, broken down from the pairings of the letters for the regular and for the verse lines. Start with TNESS, and then we go to its pairings, regular and reverse, and let's kick off with the first reverse line. So TNESS, to establish refuge, notable. Next, two lines. A covering expansion that is fair. That's obviously a reference to it's a beautiful beautiful land. Into the reverse line, kind temperaments without. So obviously the weather was agreeable. And we pass on to the next two lines, the regular and reverse. To assuage violence, to ease. And before this point, if you're in the histories, it's very clear that they'd made their way and they'd battled their way on their journey. So again, that makes sense to have that line there. And we bump into the foundation stone on the next line. Foundation stone to confirm a champion. Line 67, where we have the regular and reverse again. We have a multitude to spread, active to explore, to confirm distinction. And I think the distinction there is the different types of geophysics, where the mountains are, where the rivers are, where the growing areas are. Lines 8 and 9, positive and regular and reverse again. To draw out in a range, to stretch, to extend, that's the people. To settle, nest hospitality. Next two lines. To deal out, to spread offspring. So that's again a reference, I think, to the division of the land, to the sons of Brutus, Albanicus, Camber, and Lloydra, I think I've got that right. And then ceasing from labour, numeration, division. So once they've spread out, it's at a point where a construction can happen. They've selected where to build a city. So we can go for a construction, Troyanova, we could even go for Trinovantum, to rise. And then in the following line, to establish power, omnipotency. And in the final line, we have severity, to undermine an adversary. So the capability to mind oneself and to look after oneself. So again, this is encoded in the name of TNESS. So here we have a real conflict with it being an Anglo-Saxon word, only coming into existence about 997. So we see that we have a view to the earlier history, very, very compact and very succinct, and which follows very much in Geoffrey of Monmouth's account of Brutus' landing. Mind me for a moment, I'll pull my page. So to finish, as we can see from the examples, we might now begin to move towards a position where we can exonerate Geoffrey of Monmouth as a writer of good history, rather than the mainstream view. He's still viewed as being generally a fabulist, a writer of legend and myth, and dismissed as such as being an untrustworthy historian. These examples show that we may have located a key, possibly one used by the ancient bards, to help them recompose a known narrative on the spot, to reconstruct a known story for themselves or for others, whether on the named person or else in the name of a given place. And so, in conclusion, it now seems possible that we may have gained a way to access the confirmatory stories of ourselves as a people, belonging to a place, and that we have sight of an encoding system, one spread wide and commonplace, seen in the stones, and in the old place names, to help us remember and to restate the important narratives and to help confirm the culture in its own story, which is in effect one vast living interactive library awaiting the language reader to throw light upon the knowledge contained within the name or names. Thank you very much.